The emergency room was quiet that night. Too quiet. It was just after 2:30 a.m. when the ambulance radio crackled through the speakers. Unit 14 inbound, male patient, no ID, unresponsive. Dr. Carter barely looked up from the chart he was finishing. Night shift in a small hospital meant long stretches of boredom interrupted by sudden chaos. "Vitals?" he asked over the radio. There was a pause, then the paramedic responded. That's the strange part. The ambulance arrived minutes later. 2 paramedics rushed the stretcher through the ER doors. The patient was a middle-aged man, pale, motionless, and covered in dirt like he'd been pulled from the ground. Dr. Carter stepped closer. Pulse? None. Blood pressure? Nothing. Carter frowned. Respirations? The paramedic shook his head. None. The room fell silent. Carter looked at the patient again. Then why did you bring him here? The paramedic swallowed. Because he's warm. Dr. Carter immediately placed a stethoscope against the man's chest. Nothing. No heartbeat. No breathing. Clinically dead. But the man's skin wasn't cold. It wasn't stiff either. It felt normal, like someone who was just asleep. Start compressions, Carter ordered. A nurse climbed onto a stool and began chest compressions. Charging defibrillator. Clear. The shock jolted the body violently. Flatline. Again. Clear. Another shock. Still nothing. The monitor screamed its continuous tone. Dead. After 20 minutes, Carter finally sighed. Time of death, 2:54 a.m. The team slowly stepped away. A nurse began covering the body with a sheet. Then, the patient's finger twitched. Everyone froze. Did you see that? The nurse whispered. Carter shook his head. Post-mortem nerve reflex happens sometimes. The nurse nodded nervously and continued pulling the sheet over the man's face. Then the patient's eyes snapped open, wide, bloodshot, and staring directly at the ceiling. The nurse screamed. Carter rushed forward. The heart monitor was still flat, no heartbeat. But the man was looking around the room. His eyes slowly turned toward Dr. Carter, and his lips began to move, barely. Doctor? Carter leaned closer. What is it? Can you hear me? The man's mouth trembled. You shouldn't have. His voice sounded dry and hollow, like it hadn't been used in years. Carter grabbed a flashlight and checked the man's pupils. They didn't react. They didn't move. But the patient was still staring directly at him. Sir, can you tell me your name? The man's eyes slowly shifted toward the clock on the wall. Then he whispered something so quietly, Carter almost missed it. It followed me. A cold chill ran down Carter's spine. Who followed you? The man's lips stretched into a faint smile. Not a normal smile, a terrified one. Then his eyes rolled back into his head. The body went completely still again. Carter checked for a pulse. Nothing. Flatline. Again. Just as before. The nurse whispered nervously. Was he alive? Carter didn't answer. Instead, he pulled back the sheet. That's when he noticed something strange. There were surgical staples across the man's chest. Fresh ones, like someone had recently performed an autopsy. Carter stared at them. "Where did this patient come from?" he asked. The paramedic slowly stepped forward. "We found him behind the old county morgue." The room went silent. Carter felt his stomach drop. Why would someone leave him there? The paramedic shook his head. "That's the thing." He pointed toward the patient. "We didn't." Carter's eyes slowly widened. "What do you mean?" The paramedic swallowed hard. "When we arrived, he was already inside the ambulance." Another nurse gasped. "Like someone had put him there?" The paramedic shook his head again. "No." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Like he had climbed in." At that exact moment, the heart monitor beeped once. Everyone turned. A single spike appeared on the screen. Then another. Then another. Slow. Heavy. Impossible. The man's heart had started beating. Dr. Carter slowly stepped backward, because the patient's eyes had opened again, and this time he wasn't looking at the ceiling. He was looking directly behind Dr. Carter. The patient's cracked lips moved once more. "It's here." The voice in room 312. The call came in just before midnight. Code blue, room 312. Nurse Emily dropped the chart she was holding and rushed down the hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as she ran, casting long, broken shadows across the sterile tile floor. Room 312 had only gotten its patient a few hours earlier. Male, early 40s, severe head trauma from a car accident. Unconscious since arrival. No complications, no warning signs. When Emily pushed open the door, the crash cart was already inside. The monitor was screaming. Flatline. The patient lay motionless against white sheets, skin pale under the harsh hospital lights. The respiratory therapist was already bagging him. A doctor began compressions. 1, 2, 3. The room filled with controlled chaos. Epinephrine was administered. Nothing. Another round of compressions. Still nothing. Then, suddenly, the monitor spiked. A heartbeat. Weak, slow, but present. The team paused. Sinus rhythm returned as if it had never left. The patient stabilized. No one spoke about how sudden it had been, or how the crash had lasted exactly 60 seconds, exactly 1 minute. Emily stayed behind after the team cleared out. She adjusted the IV line and wiped the sweat from her forehead. That was when she heard it, a whisper. Soft, close, not from the hallway, from inside the room. She froze. The patient was still unconscious, eyes closed. No muscle movement. The ventilator hissed steadily. She stepped closer to the bed. The whisper came again, low, almost breathless. It sounded like someone trying to speak through water. She leaned in toward the patient's face. His lips were not moving, but she could hear it, a voice that did not belong to him. It said her name, slowly, carefully, as if learning how to pronounce it. Emily stepped back so quickly she hit the supply cart behind her. The whisper stopped. The monitor remained steady. She checked the hallway, empty. When she returned to the bedside, the patient's eyes were open, wide, unblinking, staring at the ceiling. Emily felt her chest tighten. His pupils were moving, tracking something, left to right, right to left, like he was watching someone walk above him. There was nothing on the ceiling, just vents and fluorescent panels. His eyes suddenly snapped downward, not at her, past her, over her shoulder. Emily did not turn around. She could feel something behind her, not movement, not breath, just presence. The cardiac monitor flickered. For half a second, there were 2 heart rhythms on the screen. One steady at 60 beats per minute, the other racing at 90, overlaying each other. Then it returned to normal. Single rhythm, single patient. Emily forced herself to turn around. The room was empty. When she looked back, the patient's eyes were closed again, as if nothing had happened. At 2:13 a.m., the lights dimmed. Not a power outage, just a subtle drop. The temperature in the room fell sharply. Her breath became visible in the air. The thermostat still read 71 degrees. The ventilator began making a soft clicking sound between breaths. Click, pause, click, pause. It was not part of the machine's normal cycle. Emily reached to adjust it. The screen went black. The monitor beside it began to glitch. Instead of heart rhythms, the screen displayed static, then words. Room 312 is not empty. Emily stumbled backward. The text disappeared. The monitor returned to normal. She stared at the patient. His mouth was slightly open now, jaw slack, too slack, as if something inside him was pulling downward. His chest rose slowly with each assisted breath, but his body felt wrong, tense, rigid. The whisper returned, louder this time. Not from one direction, from everywhere. The ceiling, the walls, inside her own head. It was layered, multiple voices overlapping, repeating the same phrase, not empty, not empty, not empty. The patient's body jerked upward suddenly, not like a seizure, like something yanked him from beneath the mattress. His back arched violently. The ventilator tube strained. The monitor flatlined again. Emily screamed for help. No one came. The hallway outside was silent. The overhead lights burst with a sharp pop. Glass rained down onto the tile floor. The room shifted into emergency red lighting. The patient's eyes snapped open, but they were not his. The pupils were completely black. No white visible, just endless darkness. His head turned slowly toward her. His jaw began to open, wider, wider, far beyond what was physically possible. A cracking sound echoed through the room. Not bone, something deeper, like pressure breaking through walls. Inside his mouth there was no throat, no tongue, just darkness, deep, endless. The whisper stopped, complete silence. Then a single heartbeat echoed. Not from the monitor, from inside the walls. Boom, boom, boom. The patient collapsed back onto the bed. The lights returned. The monitor showed normal sinus rhythm. The ventilator resumed steady breathing. Everything looked exactly as it had before, except the ceiling. Small handprints were pressed into the paint directly above the bed, dozens of them, child-sized, reaching outward, as if something had been holding itself there, watching. Security footage from that hour showed nothing unusual, no power fluctuations, no one entering or leaving. But at exactly 2:13 a.m., the camera outside room 312 went black for 17 seconds. When it returned, the hallway was empty. Emily requested to be transferred off the unit the next morning. Administration told her she was overtired. The patient remained stable for 3 more days, unconscious. No complications, no explanation. On the 4th night, at exactly 2:13 a.m., he disappeared. The bed was empty. The IV lines lay neatly across the sheets. No sign of struggle. No alarms triggered. Security footage showed the door never opened. The room was sealed from the inside. Police searched the building. Nothing. No body was ever found. Room 312 was repainted, reassigned, back in use within a week. 2 weeks later, a new patient was admitted there, stable condition, no neurological issues. At 2:13 a.m., her heart rate dropped to 38, then returned to normal. Nurses reported whispering, monitors flickering, cold air, and small handprints slowly appearing on the ceiling, as if something invisible was pressing upward, waiting. Room 312 is still open, still admitting patients, still recording unexplained cardiac events at the same time every night. And if you ever find yourself awake in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling in the early morning hours, and you feel something watching you from above, do not look directly at it, because the room is not empty. It never was.